Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 345 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. What's up this fine Monday, Richard?
Hey Seth, back in the preview season. Let's go.
Oh yeah, we got Innistrad cards for days, and that's going to be a big topic on the cast today. But before we get into that, we got another co-host in Krim. Welcome, Krim. How are you today?
Morning, Seth. Yeah, we're back. We're back for good old Innistrad here, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, so spoilers started Thursday, and we had a few through the weekend too. So we've gotten, I don't know, not quite half the set yet, I would say, but we have a ton of stuff to talk about. Some really interesting cards, and I think we're going to basically dedicate the entire cast to talking about new preview cards. We'll see, maybe some fish mail at the end, but that is a plan for today. New Innistrad Midnight Hunt stuff. Before we get into that though, a reminder that our show today is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit, you've probably heard about them from us before. They're a great way to sell your Magic cards, and they're offering a new service that's geared towards selling smaller batches of valuable cards with a reduced service fee. With their curated shipment service, you can sell your cards for the best available buy list price with only a 5% fee. And as with all Card Conduit services, you don't gotta sort, you don't gotta grade, none of those shenanigans. Just safely pack up your cards, ship them out, and you'll get a detailed report with the results. So you can check out Card Conduit's curated shipment option as a way to buy list up to 150 cards with fast processing, optimized prices, and the low service fee of just 5%. And you can even get another 10% off by going over to cardconduit.com/goldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you so much to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Innistrad. And before we get to the cards, we're going to get to that in a minute. I got to ask you, we're a decent way into spoiler season. What do you think about this set overall? Has it met your expectations as far as a third return to Innistrad?
I think like flavor wise, play wise, everything feels very Innistrad here. I think art wise, it looks amazing. This has to be the best art I've seen of all the Innistrads that they've done so far. I think we've got a nice return to power that is above what Strixhaven and all that was. And obviously not as powerful as Throne of Eldraine. So it looks really good. It looks like it'll also play real well. And, you know, once again, flavor and all that, it's perfect.
Yeah, I think it feels really Innistrad-y. So I was afraid of the Battle for Zendikar treatment. We didn't get here. Even Shadows over Innistrad felt like a little out of place. So I like where we are. I like the new showcase frames. I like the night showcase frames. The day ones look a little Eldraine-y to me, but the night ones are pretty sweet. The black and white ones and the new mechanics, which we're about to talk about, are pretty sweet. I think it feels really on flavor, and we don't have like a megamorph. So I actually really like what they're doing with the set. So we'll see how it actually plays out in practice and what standard looks like. But so far, it's looking pretty good for rotation.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. I think the set's looking really sweet. It feels much more like the original Innistrad than Shadows over Innistrad, which I think is a good thing. It's kind of a back to the roots of the Innistrad plane. And the cards look pretty powerful. Powerful, as Krim said, not in a way like Throne of Eldraine, where I'm sitting here like, oh no, this is going to be miserable, but powerful in a way where I'm like, okay, like these cards look pretty playable. I'm excited to play them. And Standard, I'm, hesitant to say this after the last 2 years, but Standard might actually be good after rotation. Like, I actually have pretty high hopes for our Standard. Ooh, I'm hitting my microphone as I rub my hands together in excitement. You probably heard that. So I'm super hyped for this set. But let's talk about some of these sweet new cards. Richard, take it away and guide us through some Innistrad Midnight Hunt spoilers.
All right, we have first up Arlen. The Planeswalker is back. Arlen, the Pack's Hope. Obviously, she's double-sided. So front side, 2 red and a green, 4 mana value, 4 starting loyalty, Daybound. That's a new mechanic. If a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. So +1 until your next turn, you may cast creature spells as though they had flash. And each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter. -3, create 2 green wolf creature tokens. Backside is Arlen the Moon's Fury, Nightbound. If a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day next turn. +2, add red and a green, 0. Until end of turn, Arlen becomes a 5/5 werewolf creature with trample, indestructible, and haste.
This is like almost Huntmaster, right? Like, I mean, I think this is almost, outside of the 5/5 indestructible thing, I think this is Huntmaster put in Planeswalker form.
I can see I can kind of see the comparison a little bit. I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't shoot down creatures like Huntmaster.
Oh yeah, right.
It does make wolf tokens though,
kills things.
That's right. That's right. You're right.
The mana cost though, nailed it with the mana cost. Exactly the same.
But I mean, I felt like it was pretty much like pretty close to Huntmaster, but yeah, it doesn't ping things down. So every time we've had an Arlen, she's kind of missed the mark for standard. Or at least, I mean, in most decks, I kind of feel right now it's more of the same.
Ooh, I kind of like this Arlen. I think it's the best Arlen.
Oh yeah.
I really like the design for werewolves in specific. I think that was the goal, to make a planeswalker for like Daybound, Nightbound, or werewolf style decks. And I think that +1, allowing you to cast stuff with flash, synergizes really well with a werewolf style deck. And then the thing I'm most excited about is the backside 0, like the 5/5 trample, indestructible, haste. Reality Smasher's a pretty frightening card. And the way this new Nightbound mechanic works, you can potentially have Arlen coming in on that side because something else can like switch it tonight. So you don't have to transform it once it's in play. So if you can have something else on turn 3 or whatever, switch things tonight and then just have this come down as a 5/5 trample, indestructible, haste, that's a pretty legitimate threat. So I think in a dedicated Daybound, Nightbound deck, I think Arlen could actually be really good, like in a werewolf style deck. As far as just playing it in a generic deck, then I'm a little bit less excited about it. But in werewolves, I think it could be pretty good.
I think she's good in a non-werewolf deck because she works with herself. So the biggest problem with werewolves is you can't control Daybound, Nightbound, or, the flipping, the original flipping. And, obviously if you play a full, werewolf deck, you can control this to some degree. But as like a random one-of, you can play her and then just plus and play your cards during your opponent's turn. Hence, you can get the flipping action going. And if you, for whatever reason, don't want to flip, you can just make 2 green wolf creature tokens. So I actually think she's pretty good. And the backside +2 is like weird. Like, I don't know why you're going to add mana, but okay. And you also get to pump your creatures on that +1 as well. So I actually think she works as a generic, Gruul planeswalker you slot into a deck and doesn't need to just sit in an actual dedicated Daybound, Nightbound deck.
What do you think of the Daybound, Nightbound mechanic? It's very similar to the old werewolf mechanic, but to me it feels like a pretty meaningful upgrade. Your opponents can no longer do the like, oh, wait until you passed your turn and then cast a opt on your end step to make you skip your turn and not flip your stuff because it only cares about casting spells during your own turn. It's easier to flip it back and forth, I think, with how Daybound and Nightbound works because you can come in on the Nightbound side. How big of an upgrade is this new version of the werewolf mechanic compared to the past werewolf transform mechanic?
I think this is a sweet mechanic. I love Daybound, Nightbound. I think just like how you had mentioned before, you could kind of like abuse the whole situation by just waiting until the end step. So this kind of gets around that, right?
Yeah. And the fact that you can come down on the backside is huge, right?
Yep.
Like you said, like a 4-mana 5/5 haste trample indestructible. Like your opponents need to be, on their feet, and you can control it a lot better with the way the new rules are set up. So I actually think they have fixed it. Let's be real. Besides Huntmaster, the old mechanic was like terrible, right? Like you had to go through a lot of hoops to get what you wanted.
Hey,
and
Mayor,
Arlen,
okay.
Yeah, Mayor was a 2-mana 1/1 that pumped. Okay, it was good enough at base level, but like the old Arlen, like you could not get the old Arlen to do what you wanted because you couldn't control the flipping correctly. they were actual werewolves. They couldn't control it. Like, it just happened. Right now, you can harness the power of the dark side and the light side at the same time when, you can control it. So I think it's a very meaningful upgrade. And I'm glad they fixed the mechanic, because werewolves kind of suck with the old mechanic, right? You just can't do anything with it.
Yeah, the old mechanic was not very good, and doubly so in Commander. My only concern, and I like this mechanic way better, and I wish all werewolves were like that. My only concern is werewolf decks in Commander, where some of your werewolves are daybound, nightbound, and other ones are the old school transform mechanic, might be a little awkward to track, because you're going to have like some of them flipping easily and other ones not flipping, and not having your entire board flip at the same time is going to be weird. That's my only concern. I almost wish they could go back and just like errata all the old werewolves to have this mechanic as well, because I feel like it would make Commander decks in specific just play so much better.
I think that'd be great if like all werewolves just had daybound actually kind of like stapled to them now. Daybound, nightbound. But I don't know. I mean, do you see that happening? Because I would love to see that, because I think wolves would be like fun to play, and for a long time we've needed some werewolf like love in the world of Commander. So now I guess we might have that, and I don't know. Daybound, nightbound is really cool though, so I hope they do it, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
All right, so Wizards heard you liked werewolves. And Wizards heard that we've had garbage werewolf commanders. So how about Tovolar, Dire Overlord? 1 red and a green, so 3 mana value, 3/3, legendary creature, human werewolf. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night. Then transform any number of human werewolves you control. Daybound. And then the backside is Tovolar, Midnight Scourge. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. X, green, red. Target wolf or werewolf you control gets +X/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Nightbound, 4/4.
This card is so insane. Like, not only is this the best werewolf commander ever printed, I think this is on the short list of best tribal commanders ever printed. Like, it is ridiculously powerful. Like, this card is just blowing my mind how strong it's going to be as a werewolf commander. And I think it's even going to be okay in standard. Like a 3/3 for 3 that flips around into a 4/4 and has a bunch of upsides and maybe draws you some cards. Like, unlike Ulrich, which was like kind of passable as a werewolf commander, although definitely not satisfying or exciting, it was stone unplayable in formats like standard. I think Tovolar, if werewolves is a thing, I would definitely play Tovolar in my standard werewolf deck too.
Yeah, like this is great if werewolves become a thing. This is kind of like, once again, stapling the classic Toski effect. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of annoying, but like I think this card looks really sweet for werewolves. I don't know how good it'll be in standard. This is heavily dependent on the werewolf side. I think it's just decent, or maybe I'm just out of touch because I'm used to everything, being from Eldraine. But the thing here is, like, so far power level wise, this isn't the card that has like really done it for me yet. I think it's just good.
I was gonna say, it looks extremely good to me if there's enough support. Like, if there are good other wolves and werewolves. Like, by itself, it's kind of meh. But if we can curve out with a good curve, this and then Arlen, I think this is legit. Like, as long as there's not a 3-mana 5/5 stonewalling all of your attackers, right? Like, as long as this like is almost legitimate enough. Like Toskiing is like so strong, right? Like, if you have 3 creatures you hit, you draw 3 cards. Like, there's no coming back from that, right? So I think it's really strong. And the wolf run effect ensures your combat goes through as well. There's like synergy here where they block, you just wolf run whatever they block, draw a card anyway, trade. So the grinding power of this card is really good. We'll see if a 3/3 and a 4/4 matches up to the power and level, or the power and toughness of Midnight Hunt standard.
Yeah, when I see werewolves, my initial reaction is, oh, Wizards is going to want them to be good. There's no way they're going to print a werewolf set and then not make werewolves good enough to see standard play. But that is exactly how you end up predicting Circle of Loyalty to be one of the best cards from its set, because I think that was our exact justification, was like, there's no way they're going to make this Knight set and not make Knights good enough for standard. And then turns out Knights weren't good enough for standard, and now we have a meme of Circle of Loyalty. Yeah. So I would like to say werewolves are going to be good enough, but after my experience with Knights in Throne of Alderade, I don't want to go too far saying they're going to be really good, because I think we got to wait and see. Although I am sure it's really good in Commander. There's not a doubt in my mind. It's a pretty insane legend to head your werewolf deck.
Yeah.
Toski
it'll be very good
everything.
in Commander.
This is 2022 Magic. We just make everything have Toski claws on it, and it's good.
Does that feel like the easy way out to you for at all? Like, that was my only criticism of the card. It's obviously powerful, but I kind of feel like if you took any tribe that's lacking a commander and just stick Toski's text on it, you're going to make a busted commander. Like, it's, what is Werewolfian about Tovolar? Like, I know it has the flip ability and references Wolf Run, but the Toski ability, I don't know. To me, that feels like an easy way out if you got to make a good commander. You know, if you stick that text on there, it's going to be really strong.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted to not have squirrels in werewolf decks. So they're like, I'll give you a squirrel in your commander. Like,
the best part,
you know, you're still gonna play Toski.
Yeah,
still gonna play Toski.
You use your Toski and this. Why would you not? Right?
It's good. I mean, they could have made him indestructible. You know, like, well, like what can you do in 2022? Yeah. Make him draw a card. Make them indestructible. Give them Ward 30. Like, I don't know. Right? This is one of the key things. All right, next up we have a translation, Indomitable Adversary. So that may not be the final card name. 1 in a white, Human Scout. It's a mythic. It's a 3/1 lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay a white and a generic mana, so 2, any number of times. When you pay that cost 1 or more times, put that many courage counters on Indomitable Adversary. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each courage counter on Indomitable Adversary.
This card's absurd. I think as far as 60 card formats, this might be the strongest card they've spoiled so far. Like, its base rate is good. A 3 mana 3/1 with lifelink is a fine 2-drop. And then any point in the game, this is going to be a fine draw because of that, like, multi-kicker ability. You cast it for 6 mana and you get a 5/3 that double anthems your team. It's hard for this card to ever be bad. So I feel like any sort of go wide deck, this card's going to be great. I even think this card can be modern playable because it triggers ETB rather than paying the cost when you cast it, like multi-kicker. You can, like, vial this into playing humans and pay 2 mana and have another human lord that also triggers all your human synergies. This card's just, it's really strong and really flexible.
I'm putting this right into my human commander deck. This is great just in an aggro deck, right? Like, in Commander, 60 card format or not, I mean, especially in Commander when you have mana rocks and all that stuff, you can just easily, once again, just drop this with all your excess mana and then pump your whole team. So it'll do just as, do a solid there too.
I hate cards like this. There's like no downside, right? Like, you have a really respectable early game threat that is also really good late game, right? So, like, there's like no downside. So the downside is 3/1 is not a good enough body, right? Like, that's the downside, right? So if a 3/1 is not a good enough body, but if you play it for 4 mana, is a 4/2 a good enough body, pumping your whole team? If you pay it for 6 mana, how about a double anthem effect on your team, right? Like, it's just so absurdly strong. And, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's Earl because it's not as strong as Earl, right? But, like, Earl, there's no downside, right? It's like you draw it early, you draw it late, doesn't matter, you just play it, like, it's all good, right? Like, I just don't like cards like that. So, and the fact that it's human makes it a little gross, right? For modern. So, yeah, it's going to be really strong. Depends if we have, like, Ren and 6 type cards or something that, like, really hoses this, like, 3/1 that really punishes it. But even then, you just play it later. But, you know, giving you this anthem effect is, like, crazy strong. Like, what is this multi-kicker? What are they smoking? Like, why is this so strong? Right? Like, what?
I think if there's good news, it does die to removal. Like, it technically doesn't do anything immediately. So I guess it pumps your team if you can get to combat and attack, but it's not like an ETB trigger in the sense that you're going to, draw a card and gain life like Uro is. So if you have a fatal push up or whatever, it just immediately kill it. It kind of didn't do anything, which hopefully will keep it a little bit in check. But yeah, I agree. This card is... it's hard for it to ever be bad. Like, even if you have the worst case is you have an empty board, and even then it's still pumping itself, and it's a static ability, so it's going to pump future creatures that you draw. So it's really difficult to imagine scenarios where you don't want to draw this card. If you have 2 mana, if you have 10 mana, standard 2022 mono white aggro decks, we need decks, already playing Loyal Warhound, and that's a 3/1, and that card is really bad, in my opinion. This seems like so we know a 3/1's already okay in standard 2022, and this is like a million times better. So yeah, this card is kind of crazy.
I think it's absolutely I love this card. For those exact reasons that Richard pretty much had mentioned. It's always good. It's always good.
Do you though? It's such a pain as a control player to play against this card, right? Like,
oh yeah, this
because you're like, okay, you just need to weather the storm in the first. If you can gain control, you're good. But now they're like, I don't want this late game basically overrun effect coming down, right?
Well, it is a mana. It requires them to use their mana, which might actually be good for you, right? Because you're worried about, okay, well, what else are they going to do? If they try to do anything like a +2/+2 kind of play, that's almost their entire turn, I imagine.
But they can wait for the counter spell. Like multi-kicker, you have to cast it with the multi-kicker, right? So this one, you can wait for the resolution of the spell. So now you just need to dodge removal before you sink your mana, right?
That's true. That's true. But that this is just if I remove this, it kind of deals with that kind of situation. Granted that at that point, I'm sure almost all your opponents will have been taxed on their removal. But I think this is a very powerful card. But yeah, it doesn't seem busted to me. It's just very powerful.
My big concern is I really hate 4 of constructed cards at Mythic. Like my concern is more price aspect, where remember Voice of Resurgence, when that was ridiculously expensive, Lotus Cobra the first time around, these type of cards when they're printed at Mythic and you need 4 of them for standard and maybe older formats, Pioneer, Modern, Commander, some demand there as well. This card's going to get really pricey, I think.
All right. Next up, we have a returning angel. Sigarda, Champion of Light. 1 green, white, legendary creature, angel, mythic, 4/4, flying trample. Humans you control get +1/+1. Coven, when Sigarda attacks, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a human creature card from among them and put them in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Yo, this card is bad, right? This card is really bad.
like bad as in sick or
no. First off, no one says bad as sick anymore. I how do I put this? Trash? I think right because
is it that bad?
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. 4 mana and okay, Coven. When Sigarda attacks, it's not when anything else of yours attacks and Sigarda's on the board, like Winota. This is just bad. Also, Winota puts it into play. This just puts it into hand. So even if you do get all of that somehow to happen, it goes into your hand.
It needs the Toxicity text. I think that's a problem. There's no Toxicity ability on that. I don't think it's bad though. It's a 4 mana 4/4 flying lifelink. It pumps your humans and then maybe generates card advantage.
Not lifelink. It's trample.
Okay.
So
maybe all right.
You have
It dies to
Then I guess
Doomblade. This is literally dies to Doom. It does nothing, and you need to untap and then attack. Right? I mean, I guess it pumps your humans, but I have the.
Don't you have that 3/1? Yeah, you have that 3/1. You don't. That does more to me than this card will.
I guess I feel a little bad for Sigarda because it does seem like she keeps getting worse and worse every time.
Yeah, what happens? Original Sigarda was great.
See,
that one was so
just
good.
give her
original
hexproof or
Sigarda might have been in the direction of a little bit too strong, but now Sigarda has been corrected power level wise, almost overcorrected. I don't know. Maybe prove me wrong, and like maybe this is what the format needs, and like this is where the power level is. But I genuinely think, regardless of power level, the only thing this has going for it is that it doesn't die to frostbite.
What about Commander? Would you even play this in Commander, or do you just play one of the the second Sigarda from Shadows over Innistrad?
Oh, no. Did
that give all your humans hexproof and then eat them from the graveyard to make humans or something like that? I'm not even sure it's better than the second one, which was pretty bad.
I don't even
There must be a better
remember.
Celestia human commander if you really want one, right?
You and humans you control have hexproof. Okay, so actually, compared to the old one or the second one, I think this is better than the second one as a commander. Because the second one just gave you and humans you control hexproof. And pay 2, exile a card from your graveyard, put a 1/1 human. Yeah, okay. So that is like, that's bad. That's like bottom. Like that's like really trash. And then this one is only better by a little because it does give you the anthem immediately. And because I feel like in Commander, we all know nobody plays spot removal anyways, so the thing is, this will
gonna waste it on Sigarda. You're good.
Yeah, and like exactly when they do, they're gonna probably wait until you're trying to go off with like a Splinter Twin combo, right? Not no. The
you drew a
Sigarda
card.
champion,
Like you go through all these hoops, you draw a card, right? Okay, you look at the top 5, right? You get some selection in there, but that doesn't cut it in Commander, right? Like playing your 4-drop Commander, passing the turn around. You need 3 creatures. You need 3 creatures with different powers too, right? Like there's like a lot more hoops you got to go through, and then your payoff is draw a card. You're like, okay, right? So that's not worth.
I find it funny too that you could potentially can still miss after all of that.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah. In Commander, if you do all of that, you can still miss.
What do you guys think of the Coven mechanic? Like, is that mechanic just bad? The more I think about it, the more, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of Party, where you gotta have, multiple creatures with some restriction on them stick on the battlefield for it to do anything, and then your reward is usually pretty small. Is there any hope for that mechanic, or is it just an underpowered mechanic?
Okay, Coven I think is probably better than Party. Party's pretty bad. But this is only like inches away from it, right? Like I think the payoff isn't enough. And I think on top of that, I don't know. It's just too much. It's too much. It requires you to do too many things. I mean, there are better cards with Coven, but I don't think I've seen that card yet. Granted that we haven't seen the whole set yet. So there's definitely still something that could blow my mind when it comes to Coven.
It's a limited mechanic, right? You don't want 3 creatures on the battlefield. You're just going to get blown up by a board wipe. And if you do have 3 creatures, chances are they're all the same. Like they're 1/1 tokens or something like that, right? So it's really hard to trigger Coven. So I think it's a limited mechanic. Same thing with Party, right? If for some reason you assembled the full party on the battlefield and did not get board wiped, then you're good to go. But you probably won already if like this was the state of the game, right? So
yeah,
like I don't know, like Magic is just have one giant creature that's resilient and like keeps coming back and like just end the game, right? Not go wide with different power creatures, including your 4-drop 4/4 that needs to untap to attack. So it seems like a doomed mechanic.
Yeah, that's kind of where I come down. It doesn't seem like a very good constructed mechanic to me. It seems like it takes a lot of work. It's really fragile to removal, similar to Party. And at least Party had some like relatively big payoffs. But so far from what we've seen from most of the Coven payoffs, they're not that good. I actually think Sigarda might be the best of them. Some of them are like, put a single counter on something. I'm like, really? You want me to play 3 creatures with different power and you're going to give me
for free? And Sigarda would still be questionable, right?
Yeah,
rather than putting it, just drop it to the battlefield and you're like, I don't know.
Sigarda should put it onto the battlefield for all that you're going through. But
yeah, Winota did.
Yeah,
Winota put multiple creatures into play. I can't imagine Sigarda putting
Winota's like here.
Winota
Putting one creature into
is
play.
a very powerful card. I don't know if that's a if you're in the shadow of Winota, I think that's fine. But to even say this anywhere, like it is just kind of close in that it has 4 mana and it's a 4/4.
But you have trample in case they have flying jump blockers.
Okay, that's true. That's true. I mean, you are correct. This card is so bad.
All right. Next up, we have Consuming Blob. 3 green, 5 CMC. It's also a mythic. Power and toughness is star and star +1. Consuming Blob's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. At the beginning of your end step, create a green ooze creature token with this creature's power is equal to the number of card types in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that +1. So Tarmogoyf tokens, but your graveyard only.
Yo, this card I think is actually really good for my Ooze Commander deck. I am so excited. It's weird. Like this card
It's not
might
the right
be
colors, though. Don't you need the blue?
Yeah, well, it's not my commander. The thing here, although I do think
it's
that
not even
like,
legendary. Never mind.
It's not even legendary.
It's just an ooze.
Yeah. It's a good ooze, right? I mean, I've been adding every ooze I can get into my deck. So like, obviously, I even added Ocaran ooze or whatever. That card's terrible. But this card is so sweet in an ooze deck, and I'm not really sure whether this is like playable in standard yet. I mean, I think the one thing that would have it going in its way is that it's at the beginning of your end step that you create the ooze token. So as opposed to waiting till your upkeep or paying mana or something like that. Of course, if they kill it right away, you did just kind of pay 5 mana for like nothing. But
I feel like it's going to be good in standard. I think it is. Like my main concern is Wizards is attacking a lot of graveyard hate onto things. We've had several creatures that are just like, oh, incidentally exile your opponent's stuff when it dies. So maybe there's too much graveyard hate, but it reminds me of Biogenic Ooze. Biogenic Ooze was also a 5-drop that also made an ooze token the turn it came into play. You had the ability to pay 4 to make more 2/2 oozes, but Consuming Blob just gives you 1 for free each turn, and that's going to be a lot of power and toughness. I feel like most of the time, this is going to be at least a 3/4 when it comes down if you're built around it even a little bit, and then you get another 3/4 on your end step. I feel like that's actually like a pretty reasonable threat for standard for some sort of just like random mid-range piles type deck. But what do you think, Richard? You're the Tarmogoyf expert. How good is this card?
It's going to be tough.
Biogenic Ooze is way better.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because at the end step, it puts a 1/1 counter on each ooze you control. So it can take over the game by itself, right? Like, so if you like cards like Huntmaster that just kind of just sit there and just kind of do things on their own, Biogenic Ooze did that, right? It was its own one ooze army. This is
a 1 ooze army, though.
No, this gives
really
you
slow.
Yeah, it's super slow.
Isn't Biogenic Ooze this?
No.
I'm so confused.
No. The plus
Biogenic Ooze, it's a 2/2 that makes a 2/2, and then they become 3/3s on your end step. This is going to be a 3/4 that makes a 3/4. Like, you're just getting more power and toughness, and you get an ooze every turn without spending mana. I'm so confused how this is not better.
You're only getting 1. Right? So the thing here is then I can also just sit there and just sink mana into Biogenic Ooze and not have to commit anymore. And then it becomes, I actually get 2 3/3s, right? Or whatever, not counting itself. So it's like 3 bodies that I think you can get. So I think that at the beginning of your end step, part of Biogenic Ooze makes it infinitely better. And then on top of that, the activated ability is actually really nice.
Yeah, I think.
Interesting.
So in standard, you can just play like an ooze, and then that's it. Your opponent has to deal with it or you die, right? And you can just keep sinking mana into it and like call it a day. Whereas this one takes a bit to ramp up. Having played Tarmogoyf for 8 million years, it's going to be tough to get this thing big. Like you really, in Modern, rely on fetch lands going to the graveyard as some base power, and then also your opponent's doing things. Because this is only your graveyard, like think about it. The ideal case is your opponent had to Doomblade you or something to get a creature in the graveyard. You had to cast an instant and a sorcery, and you're at a 3/4 only, right? Like what are the odds you cast an instant or sorcery already, right? So, it's kind of slow, but, maybe by turn 5, you can get a 3/4 because the game has gone on for a long time. But even then, like, it's not that exciting. I'd rather have the other ooze.
I would kind of imagine if you're playing it that you probably have some graveyard synergies. You're probably playing Ren in 7 or other like self-mill style effects to try to speed up the process a bit. But I think you're right. If you don't build around it at all, that is a big issue, not hitting on your opponent's graveyard. That is going to keep the size of the consuming blob in check.
And on top of that,
but I think if you build around it,
well, I was gonna say if you play Ren in 7, it's gonna dump a ton of lands into play, right? So that means Biogenic Ooze once again would be able to activate more than and also just get a free ooze. So
yeah, all right. I'm sticking with consuming blob. We'll see. I still think you haven't completely sold me that it's worse than Biogenic Ooze, but you did have some good points. I will give you some good points.
All right. Enduring Angel is up next. 2 white, white, white. So 5 mana value, 3/3, mythic. Creature Angel, flying double strike, you have hexproof. If your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel and your life total becomes 3. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. Flip side, star, power and toughness, flying, you have hexproof. Angelic Enforcer's power and toughness are equal to your life total. Whenever Angelic Enforcer attacks, double your life total.
It's gotta be worse than Sigarda, right?
Actually, well, I don't know. Yeah, it is. It is. Like, if there was a little like soundboard I have for just trash, I think I would be firing that off right now. This card is really bad. It's an angel. I think that's cool. But otherwise, is this good?
I don't understand the last clause. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. Like, what? What does that mean?
So, I think that's to account for copies of it. Like if you make a token copy, it wouldn't have a backside, but it would still technically transform when you died, so you would just never die.
I see. Okay. So in the normal case, so if you're about to die, your life total becomes 3, you flip this thing, and then it's basically a 3/3. When it attacks, you double your life total.
The thing here is it should be a 5/5. For 5, at least, coming down.
Yeah. My big concern in standard is Frostbite. Like the 3 toughness, I think you're dead on. Like, I just can't imagine, with how popular Frostbite is, playing a 5-drop that doesn't do anything immediately and dies to a 1-mana removal spell that's really heavily played. I think it's a cool design, and I might play it in like a commander deck, and if you flip it and somehow gain life, it is a powerful creature. Like, it is going to grow quickly, but in standard, I can't get past the Frostbite thing.
Why do you have hexproof? The angel should have hexproof. The angel forgot about the one weakness in this plan. You just kill the angel before anything happens.
Yeah, it's just too much of a mana. Like, it costs way too much, and it's triple white. It just looks really bad.
That's like we're back to normal angels. We usually get like really bad angels. So I guess we're back on that track. So next up, we have the Celestis, a 3-mana legendary artifact at rare. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as the Celestis enters the battlefield. Tap, add 1 mana of any color, pay 3 generic and tap it. If it's night, it becomes day. Otherwise, it becomes night. Activate only as a sorcery. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, you gain a life. You may draw a card. If you do, discard a card.
Damn, dude, Richard's straight spitting right now. Hold on, what? Like, can you read that all over again?
Look, it's a mana rock that converts day to night for 3 mana, okay? And you get to loot and gain a life when this happens.
I mean,
all right,
outside of hearing day and night, I feel like I heard it like 30 times.
Look, night and day, day and night, night becomes day, transform, day to life, day, night, day, night, night, day. That's the card, okay?
I think otherwise, outside of the mouthful that it is, I think it's actually a pretty cool mana rock. I mean, I don't know if I'm playing this in standard, like it seems pretty bad in standard, but I could see this happening in like that Werewolf commander deck we were talking about. This seems kind of right at home there.
Yeah, Werewolf commander, it's definitely worth it. I was curious if you think it's worth it in a non-Werewolf commander deck. Like 3-mana mana rocks are kind of out of favor in favor of 2-mana mana rocks. Is the ability to loot and gain a life whenever day becomes night or night becomes day. Is that enough? Is that enough to make you want to put this in your deck, or is that not enough of an upside? If you're a werewolf deck, it's great because it's going to loot whenever day and night switches, and theoretically that's going to be happening without you spending mana, so you're just going to get a bunch of free looting and life gaining, which seems good. But without those synergies, is that enough of an upside to play a 3-mana rock?
What's the commander card, the ornament or whatever, the one that came out from the pre-cons a while back where...
Bonder's Ornament?
I think
that's the one that...
Right? Bonder's Ornament?
Commander Sphere?
No. Commander Sphere is like... Bonder's Ornament is the one I'm thinking of.
What does that do?
That card, that's a 3-mana, add 1 mana of any color, pay for each player who controls a permanent named Bonder's Ornament draws a card, right? Like, so I think that this is... I guess like a little bit better than that, but not by much. Like in a generic non-werewolf deck. Otherwise, I don't know. Is it really that much?
This is just
different?
like maybe. So it's a 3-mana rock. Maybe you loot once. How's that better than Bonder's Ornament? Isn't Bonder's Ornament just straight better? You just pay.
I guess you're right. Yeah. Because I mean, I guarantee you, no one else is gonna like be playing a Bonder's Ornament. So I think this. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's actually worse than Bonder's Ornament. For 1 mana more, I'll probably always get to draw a card.
Like, so you have Worn Power Stone, right? 3 mana, 2 mana. You have things like Darksteel Ingot. That's just like indestructible, and then you have the one that fixes all your like Chromatic Lantern. Like,
don't forget Skyclave Relic. I'd rather
Skyclave Relic is way better. Yeah, it's it has kicker and it's indestructible. And then you even have like weird ones like Strixhaven Stadium and things like that. So I actually don't think you would ever play this outside of a werewolf deck.
Yeah.
I think you'd play the Magnifying Glass, Seth, where you like pay 8 mana to investigate and draw a card.
To invest.
I feel that's better than this. It's
gotta be better than that, right? It's gotta be better than that one at least.
No, because you gotta skip your turn
only
to
3
flip
mana.
day and night.
I mean, I guess we'll have to see. I think you're probably right that you need some amount of other cards to flip from day to night. Maybe you don't got to be full on werewolf tribal. Like maybe if you have, a handful of good standalone day and night cards that can give you some free loots, maybe it'd be worth it. But yeah, I think the more we talk about it, I think you're right that you really do need other ways to manipulate day and night to make it worth it. Because there's just so many options. We have so many mana rocks these days that like 5 years ago, this card probably would have been really sweet back in the era when people were playing Darksteel Ingots with a straight face in most of their commander decks. But we're pretty long past that at this point.
All right, next up, we have Unnatural Growth. 1 green. So... what was that? 5 mana value. Enchantment at rare. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn.
I think this is weird. I'm not really sure how good this is in the standard format yet. I think right now this looks good in like maybe Commander. This is kind of exactly what I'd want in Commander. But otherwise, this is just it. Is it not better to just, I mean, I guess it's better than Sigarda. Oh, no. This is 5 mana. It's not 4 mana.
It is 5. Standard, I'm pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
I think the only way I could see this going well is if there was some sort of like mono green trample deck, because it doesn't give evasion. So just making your creatures big isn't that good. And it has 4 green mana symbols. So you basically got to be mono green. I don't know if there's a chance we could have like Old Growth Troll into Gnarled Professor into this, and just all of a sudden you have like 20 power of Tramplers on turn 5 or something. Is that actually going to be good enough? I don't know. But if it has any chance in Standard, I think that's probably where it's going to be, some sort of trample style deck. In Commander, I think it's interesting. It also synergizes really well with extra combats because it triggers each combat. So if you have Morog or something, you're going to be pumping multiple times each turn. And then if you have a Trampler, it'd be pretty easy to build them into a one-shot kill. I think that is probably the most powerful thing you can do with it. But again, that might be more of a Commander deck than a Standard deck.
So it doesn't. So it's like a 5 mana finisher, but I'd rather just play like Beastmaster Ascension or Coat of Arms. The one upside I see is you can drop this down like 1 turn, pass, somehow untap, double the power and toughness of your creatures, and then use one of the green cards to draw cards based on power, like Garrick or something, or Return the Wild Speaker.
Ooh.
So you draw like a billion cards. But again, that presumes you're going to untap with this and you're not immediately murdered. It's like playing the turn 3 Beastmaster Ascension, you're going to die, right? You only play it as an overrun effect. And being like 5 mana with 4 green symbols in it, I'm a little skeptical about it.
Oh, so yeah, I keep forgetting. It's 5 mana. It's not 4. Okay, it actually just keeps getting worse because that
green, one generic. Yeah.
I thought this was quad green. I just keep looking at it as quad green.
No, they added an extra mana.
Maybe in a devotion deck, like if you're playing Nykthos, some sort of green devotion commander deck, that could be interesting.
But then it's Nylea. It's like, what? That's not that big a deal.
The other thing in Commander is I kind of want my pump spells to give trample. Like, I'm honestly not sure that I would rather have this over like Overwhelming Stampede or something. Like, wouldn't it be better just to kill your opponent with Overwhelming Stampede rather than playing this and having them jump block with a bunch of 1/1s or something?
Yeah.
And you need big creatures, which like if you already have big creatures, what you probably want is trample. Right, so if I put this in a birds deck, I become 2/2 birds. It's not a very exciting, right? Like you need to already have 5/5s or whatever, right, to make into 10/10s. But then they need trample.
I feel like maybe with specific commanders, this could be pretty good. Like Galta becomes a 1-shot kill out of your command zone because it's going to be 24/24 trample.
Yeah.
So maybe with or like Xenagos also makes like a huge trampling threat each turn. Maybe there's like specific commanders where I would rather have this than an overrun.
Yeah, fully like in a Galta deck, that's perfect.
I need an excuse to break out Galta again. So all right, I call unnatural growth in Commander Clash. All right. Those are all the cards we wanted to talk about today. Do you guys have any specific cards that we missed?
Yeah, literally all like the blue ones.
Do we not talk about a single blue card today? Oh,
those are all green. And a white.
What's the best blue card we've seen so far, Grim?
I mean, Poppet Stitcher. I think that card is
let's
awesome.
do Poppet Stitcher. So Poppet Stitcher is 2 and a blue. It's a 2/3. It's a mythic creature, human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. Decayed is a new mechanic keyword. It means it can't block when it attacks. Sacrifice it at the end of combat. So at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more creature tokens, you may transform Poppet Stitcher. Backside is an artifact, Poppet Factory. Creature tokens you control lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 3/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may transform Poppet Factory.
I mean, is that not, you could even say now you're pop it off. You know what I mean? Because that's going to be a sick card. I love this, right? This is kind of like a blue monastery mentor, kind of like thingy effect. And I think it's a 2/3. So it's not like it's going to randomly get blocked by a 1/1 and then get like killed or anything. So I don't know, it being a 2/3 is pretty sweet. Still dies to Frostbite, but it's a cheap enough threat to where, okay, if you don't kill this, I'm going to go off here.
I definitely am interested in trying to play a Poppet Sedmore Witch deck in Standard, because it's a very similar style effect that wants the same thing. Some sort of like Dimir Spellslinger token deck. My only concern is, what do you think of Decayed? That's my one concern with this. I feel like if you just read it as like, oh, a 2/2 token, the card's absurd. But when you think, okay, it's a 2/2 token that can't block, and I can only attack with it once and then it goes away, how good are Decayed tokens? That's been one of my biggest struggles this entire spoiler season, because there's a lot of cards that say Decayed, and you read them and you're like, wow, for the mana cost, you're making a lot of tokens. This has to be powerful. But I keep thinking in the back of my mind, like, maybe Decayed is just like this huge downside. Because when I think of Young Pyromancer and other similar effects, Monastery Mentor, part of the power is you can like cast a spell, make a 1/1 chump blocker to like not die and survive, and then try to like rebuild the next turn. I feel like not being able to block is a pretty big drawback. I still think the card's good, but what do you think of Decayed in general? Like, how big of a drawback is that?
Decayed in general, I think, is still going to, depending on how you get these tokens, like, Poppet Stitcher, I think on its own that's amazing, right? And especially if you get to flip over and become Poppet Factory, then you don't have to worry about the Decayed part, right? They stay around for quite some time.
Yeah, that is an upside with Stitcher for sure. Losing the abilities is big text on the backside.
Correct. And like, so depending on how, because you're going to get tokens just for doing stuff that you're already going to do. And if that's the case, I love that. Anytime you can reward me for doing something I'm pretty much already going to do, I'm on board. And I like Poppet Stitcher specifically seems really good. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about the card after. There's another one that's a black legendary that I love. And yeah, like these decayed things mean that like I can also now just attack a little more aggressively and not have to worry about like, you know, losing out unless I'm trying to go like super duper wide or something. Of course, it's poor defensively, but you know what? I think I'm okay with that because why would I ever block?
I think the can't block is a big deal. So it needs to go into aggressive decks. Like, yes, theoretically you can flip the factory, but like you need to play this. You need to untap. You need to cast 3 spells. And even if you do that, it's the following turn that you transform back into Poppet Factory. So it takes forever, assuming you can even just like fire off 3 1-mana cantrips. So it's very slow if you want to block.
Consider is in the format, so that's perfect for this blue-black zombie Sagmore Witch deck.
That's very slow if you want to be blocking. Now, if you want to be attacking, this is perfectly reasonable, right? But can you actually get like an aggressive deck? You know, like I guess like you maybe do some kind of is it burn action or something, right? Where you cast Poppet Stitcher, you burn their face, you make some zombies, you swing at them. Like that style deck, I think is good. But like it's not Young Pyromancer. It's not Mentor, where you just sit there, you cast spells, you chump block, you keep doing it, and then you eventually like turn the tides and win. Like not being able to block, I think, is a big deal. So aggressive, is it burn deck or something like that could be an interesting shell for it.
Eventually you could kind of block, but yeah, it's much slower defensively.
It's like you got detained for like 3 turns or something before you could actually block, right? It was like a long time.
But aggression-wise, this is good.
The time, you know,
this seems really. This is like something I'd probably play out of the sideboard of my control deck just to, you know, break a control mirror or something like that. This seems really good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
All right, we got time for one card. Krim, what is the one black card you want to talk about?
Oh, only one. Okay, Giza. Glorious Resurrector. In the world of Decayed, right? I mean, we're gonna stay in it. It's a 2 and black legendary creature, human wizard. If a creature an opponent control would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Giza Glorious Resurrector onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. This is awesome, right? I mean, it's not like how Kalidas can like be like good against, you know, aggro decks because it does have lifelink. This does just serve as a solid graveyard hate though, and eventually kind of just over like your opponent can't let too many things go underneath the Giza here, or else they're probably gonna die and be in a lot of trouble. On top of that, every time I look at Giza, I think of It's Always Sunny. I forgot her name already. She's part of the main cast. I don't remember any of their names except for Mac.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
you know who I'm talking about. Yeah,
I do.
And then I've never watched It's Always Sunny. You can convert it.
Really?
Now.
You've never watched Always
Sunny? I think
Sunny?
I've seen like a couple episodes, but I've never like sat down and watched the full thing. But I know how beloved it is.
Yeah. Well, she reminds me of that. And then there's the black and white art one where it actually looks like true, like a horror thing, where this one, it just looks like, yo, you're having a good time. Go off, you know, like, and I love this as a card. Is this not super duper sweet? I feel like this is kind of like the fact that it serves as graveyard hate. Granted that it's only creature graveyard hate. I think this is going to be sweet and standard.
I think it's fun. I think it's a fun card. I'm not sure that I think it's that strong. I'm not sure. The fact that it has to stay on the battlefield until your next upkeep is a little bit concerning. So there's it's slow, but it can be powerful if it sticks out. Like I imagine if you can like play this and cast a couple removal spells, isn't there, was it Darger Necromancer or whatever? It reminds me of that a little bit, with the upside being that you get the cards for free if you're willing to wait, where Necromancer, you actually have to spend the mana on them, which is a lot slower. Although Necromancer, it exiles things with an ice counter, so it sticks around for like future copies if Necromancer dies. It reminds me of like a fixed Turgrid, like how Turgrid gives you the value immediately. It's like, oh, you sack something and now I get it. This reminds me of Turgrid, but in a slower, fairer sort of way. But I do think it's still a sweet card. Do you think it's actually good in Standard?
I can see it being good in Standard. It's a 4/4. That's the biggest thing. It's a 4/4. It doesn't die to like Frostbite. It is a bit slower. But this isn't a card that I want in a format like against a deck that's like going to be counterspell heavy, right? This is a card that I could see maybe in my sideboard or maybe in the main board of something, I don't know, but in low numbers against all the other numerous creature decks that are running around. Because your opponent can't afford having you like get random things like, I don't know, a Brutal Cathar or who knows what else is in standard right now. Like if it goes underneath Giza, then it becomes a problem.
It does seem really good against random aggro decks. Like if you're up against white aggro or even red aggro, since it doesn't die to Frostbite, like in those matchups, I imagine you play this, a 4/4 is good enough to block most of your opponent's best threats. And then you just cast your removal spells and end up stealing their creatures and beating them down with them. So I think definitely worse against like control decks and like removal heavy mid-range decks, but against the creature aggro decks, it actually could be pretty good.
Yeah. Like, and the thing here is like, you don't have to pay the mana to put those cards that have been exiled onto the battlefield. They just go on the battlefield, right? So that's pretty good.
There's got to be something better.
No, that is an upside.
It relies on your opponent having good creatures, which half the time you can't. Like half the time they have no creatures. They're either control decks or they're doing something where they don't have creatures. And then the other half of the time they have bad creatures you don't want. So it seems very conditional. My real question is it Jundable?
I don't know if I'm playing it in modern.
It looks like Kalidas for the first line, right? And I feel like I want to force it for the memes. Like there's got to be there's got to be something.
I mean,
there's got to be some matchup where you're like, look, this is the card I want. I don't know what that matchup is, but there's got to be some matchup where you actually want this. But every 4-drop, you know, you got to try it. You never know, right? You got to.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is Cigar de Jund is on the menu.
I mean, you know
I
what?
would kill your
Sigarda
Sigarda and take it and be sad.
Sigarda pumps Giza Glorious Resurrector, so you go Abzan and you just get to party.
What do you think of Giza and Commander? Do you think this could be like fair Turgid that doesn't make you arch enemy right away? Like obviously it's way less powerful. There's way more hoops and you can't just wheel and steal everyone's hand or whatever. But do you think this is a card where you can get that same sort of like steal your opponent's stuff play style without, you know, it looking so scary that people just try to kill you first?
I mean, I think they're gonna kill you. Because anytime
you think it's still that scary?
I think it's still something that where it's like, hey, if you get to take anything of mine and put it on the board, I'm probably gonna have to kill you. Unless like I just don't see how this is ever a bad card.
I mean, it gets decayed,
Commander.
right? You only get they get like an ETB or an attack triggers, right? And then
sometimes that's all they need. Like imagine just going, I kill your Eternal Witness, right?
I mean, that's fine. I don't know. I think this card's bad because then you got to play a ton of spot removal, and who wants to do that, right? Like you need a ton of spot removal to.
You should be playing spot removal. I think this card is super cool in like a mono black kind of like control deck.
You 1-for-1 yourself like, to get back a creature, so then you like basically just 2-for-1, kind of. And then that's not exciting. I want an 8-for-1 in Commander, right?
There's some shenanigans though. You can use like Conjurer's Closet to blink the decay creature, and then it comes back under your control, but it won't have decay, so you get like a real copy of it.
Back
and there's some other
control or owner's control, or
under your control. There's some that's owner's control, but there's a few that are also under your control. There's some janky old artifacts that also do that. So there are some ways to try to build around it, but decay. I'm not sold on decay. I'm very skeptical of decay in general.
All right. So that wraps up our previews this week. So if you want to see them, you can check them on the website, mtgpreviews.com. We'll get to more previews next week as we wrap up spoiler season. I guess we have time to sneak in one fish mail question. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail. We'll get to your questions on air. @Gergen Ryan, what is the crew's opinion on Amazon Magic the Gathering scandal? People are buying boxes, taking the good cards, resealing, and sending them back to Amazon. This is causing others to get packs that have no rares and sometimes filled with just lands. Have you guys heard of this thing where you're buying directly from Amazon, right? And it says it's from Amazon, and you get like 2-day shipping, whatever. It comes sealed, but it's actually been resealed because someone has sent that box back to Amazon, and Amazon keeps all their inventory together. So like their actual inventory they get from distributors plus whatever inventory they get from third-party merchants are kept together. So you are at risk of getting one of these bad boxes. And of course, random person at Amazon doesn't have the expertise to double check to make sure your box hasn't been resealed or whatever. So people have been getting obviously resealed packs coming from Amazon.
Oh yeah, I mean, well that's terrible. I think this is a huge mess over in the world of Amazon. They need to figure that out real quick. But for right now, I am not buying anything from Amazon that is like card game related. Pokemon, any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think sadly that's the only thing you can really do right now to be safe, because how do you know? And can you even, like, let's say you're one of those people that get a bad box that's been tampered with. Can you even return it? I don't know how comfortable or confident I would be that I could talk to some random person at Amazon and explain like, oh, the rare was missing out of my pack or something. Like, do you think you can get a refund if it does happen to you? Maybe Krim is right and you just have to not buy from Amazon right now. And how would Amazon even fix that? Is there any, like the same thing happens at Walmart in person where people will buy stuff, take the good cards out of it, return it to Walmart, or it used to. I think they might have changed their rules recently to prevent it. So the same thing happens there. Is there anything Amazon can do, like you stop accepting returns of Magic cards? Is that what it comes down to? But is there any way they can even really 100% fix this problem?
To be honest with you, I think that's the fix, right? They just got to stop accepting returns. I mean, it's also kind of weird because like I think this is also just something across Amazon, because I bought, Thor, my dog, food, and I get the food in the mail. And it's literally...
It was all basic lands.
It was all basic lands. Like that's where they all went. There was no rare. The food was already opened and resealed.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is not just an issue with returns, by the way. So this can happen like straight up without returns, because if I list an item on Amazon, so we all know that random people can list items on Amazon, right? I can send it into Amazon and they will mix my inventory with their inventory. So this is actually a bigger problem across all of Amazon with counterfeits, right? Like if you buy like maybe like an SD card or something, there are some merchants that buy counterfeit SD cards and then they sell it on Amazon and they mark it as the authentic one and it gets mixed in with the pool, right? So this is actually a broader Amazon problem, but it particularly hits hard with cards. And I think the only answer is your LGS, right? Like your LGS has a reputation, they have an expertise to look at the cards, and more importantly, they're not accepting random products from strangers to sell, right? They're getting them from distributors. So I think the LGS is where you go to combat this while Amazon figures this problem out. And it's just awkward because Amazon is the quote unquote official place to get Wizards products. Like that's where Wizards distributes them. But just so that everyone knows that this is an issue. And I think if you actually get it and you recognize it, Amazon will refund you no problem. But what if you don't recognize it, right? Like if they give you no rare, it's obvious. But what if they just give you like bulk rares and you didn't notice the pack was resealed, right? That's where the real problem is if you don't have the expertise to figure it out.
Well, I mean, it's good to support your LGS anyway if you have the opportunity. So maybe this is just another reason to support your LGS. I just feel bad, like, I guess for people who don't have an easy LGS, like I'm kind of one of those people for the most part that I live in a pretty rural area. I don't have like LGSs that are close by, and this few small ones that are like somewhat close by a lot of times don't do a lot of seal product or even any seal product at times. So yeah, hopefully they figure out a way to get it fixed. And it definitely is awkward that Wizards has their official store on there because it kind of directly ties Wizards' name to it to some extent.
Well, Seth, if you don't have an LGS, you can go to cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. Order all your seal products. They're like an LGS for everyone, Seth.
Whoa!
I need to do that because I need to get a free MTGGoldfish sticker of a Bearded Scoops by letting them know in the order notes that I would like one.
Perfect. This was not planned at all. So thank you, Kirk and Ryan, for sending in the question. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 345 of the MTG Goldfish Fish podcast. So Richard, Cribb, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about more Innistrad spoilers and whatever else goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have an amazing week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.